Clash Royale has been out for nearly a decade at this point, and with hundreds of different cards in the game so far, it's no surprise that players have come up with a lot of insane card concepts of their own. So here are some of Clash Royale's craziest and most interesting card concepts. Number 1. The Mirror Knights were a unique concept posted to Reddit in 2022. When placed, this 4 elixir card would spawn 2 units comparable to a Royal Recruit in both lanes. Sounds pretty underwhelming, right? Well, whenever the opponent tried to do damage to one of the knights, the knight in the opposite lane would actually be the one to take the damage. This could lead to many interesting interactions and potentially confuse the opponent. I for one think this concept is on the right track, and it would be cool to see this concept adapted into an actual card in the game one day. Number 2. This next part introduces 2 card concepts that would introduce decimal elixir costs into Clash Royale. The base card would be referred to as the Flies and would only cost half an elixir to play. This card would summon 3 extremely weak flying units that could distract any ranged or flying cards for a brief moment, and they wouldn't be able to attack air units. Players have always wanted to see a card that costs less than 1 elixir in the game, so I think that something similar to this could be cool to have added. Going along with the concept of the Flies is the Trash Can, costing 1.5 elixir and working similarly to a furnace but for flies. I feel like a building that cheap would be hard to balance in the game since it would get a ton of value for only 1.5 elixir, but it's still a cool concept nonetheless. Number 3. The Aleator is a card concept posted to Reddit only a few months ago. The card would only cost 3 elixir, but once engaged would turn into a random card in the game. So for example, it could turn into something as cheap as an Ice Spirit or something all the way as expensive as a Golem or 3 Musketeers. I feel like this concept would definitely need to cost 5 elixir or so because it would just be way too valuable too often to be balanced at 3 elixir. I realistically don't think Supercell would ever add this to the game as a permanent card, but it would at least be cool to see it added to the game in a temporary event or something similar. Number 4. Players have been asking for a water card that lives in the river pretty much ever since the game came out. Well, last year a Redditor made a post detailing a concept for Piranhas that would sit in the river and prevent troops that usually jump the river from jumping over. Whenever a Hog Rider, Prince, or similar would try and jump over, they would be bitten by the Piranhas and stunned for a brief moment. While this card concept is interesting, and I'd love to see a water card in the game at some point personally, the Piranhas seem way too targeted and situational, and I think the OP just really hates Hog Riders. Number 5. Many of you Clash Royale veterans out there may remember that we used to have a heal spell in Clash Royale, but Supercell ended up getting rid of it for the heal spirit instead. Well, a Redditor made a post just last month suggesting a Void Spirit be added to the game. The Void Spirit would do the same thing as the heal spirit, except it would summon a void spell instead of a heal spell, obviously. Just like the void spell, this spirit would do more damage if it hit a single target and less damage to groups or swarms. This is definitely a cool concept, but I'm not so sure Supercell would ever actually add this one into the game. Number 6. Another thing players have been asking for in Clash Royale since the dawn of time is a free card that costs no elixir. Supercell has mentioned in the past that they've actually already thought of this, but that it would be too OP since anything the card did would be free value for no elixir cost. Well, this next concept from last year on Reddit called the Sacrifice might just be a solution to get us a free card in the game. The Sacrifice card would cost, you guessed it, 0 elixir, but all it would do is damage your own tower. The card would do less and less damage to your tower the more you upgraded it, and I think something like this could really work in Clash Royale. The only thing I would personally change is the damage amount, since I don't think anyone would be willing to take a rocket's worth of damage to their tower just to cycle one card, but hey, maybe that's just me. Number 7. The next concept on our list is the Bounty Hunter. The Bounty Hunter would be a skeleton-based card that would hold 1 pistol in each hand and shoot at enemy troops and buildings. His unique mechanic would be the fact that he can either use both pistols on one target or split the shots against 2 separate targets. While this concept does seem pretty cool at first, some of you may think it also sounds very familiar, and that is because we technically already have a card like this in the game. The Electro Wizard has been in the game for many years at this point, and while he isn't the exact same as the Bounty Hunter would be, he does have the same mechanic of being able to switch between 1 or 2 targets. For that reason, I don't think Supercell would ever add this to the game since it isn't unique enough. Number 8. Any of you who've played Clash of Clans before would be familiar with the Headhunter troop. The Headhunter in Clash of Clans is a troop that focuses on defending heroes and does heavy damage to them along with a poison effect when you're attacking. Well, one Redditor towards the end of last year thought this troop would be a great addition to Clash Royale as well. The Headhunter in Clash Royale would target the champions first, since those are pretty much Clash Royale's version of the heroes, and it would apply a similar slowing and damage over time effect. This wouldn't be the first time a Clash of Clans troop has been adapted to Clash Royale or the other way around, so I could definitely see this getting added someday. Number 9. The Balloon Tower was a card concept from a couple years ago on Reddit. The Balloon Tower would start out as a building which would essentially just be a musketeer on top of a tower, and once the building went down, the balloon would then start moving and carrying the musketeer with it. From what I can tell, the balloon wouldn't drop bombs like a normal balloon, but would just be a means of making the musketeer a flying card essentially. This concept actually seems really cool, but the elixir cost does seem a bit low since you're getting way more value than a regular musketeer for only 1 more elixir than the musketeer costs. Number 10. The Chains is a card concept from only a couple of months ago. The Chains would be a spell that would drag drag all air cards in its radius down to the ground and slow them down for a short time. This would allow any ground targeting troops to hit the air cards and potentially take them out before the spell wore off. I think a concept like this could be interesting and useful to have in the game, but like always, Supercell would need to do a lot of testing to make sure the spell radius, duration, and elixir cost were balanced. This card concept also runs the risk of being a little bit too situational and targeted for Supercell's taste. Number 11. The Outlaw is an older card concept from back in 2020. The Outlaw would be a medium cost troop that would carry a 6-shooter and would essentially have one specific enemy troop as his target at any given time. The Outlaw would do 35% extra damage to that specific troop he was targeting, and once that troop went down, he would wait a few seconds before picking a new target. It is unclear from the concept whether he would specifically walk across the map to go attack the targeted troop, or if he would just do extra damage if he so happened to be attacking the targeted troop, but either way I think that this concept would be a lot of fun to have in the game. Number 12. The Snake was an interesting spell concept posted to Reddit just last year. The Snake would do a bit more damage than the Log, but its unique mechanic is that you would essentially be able to draw out the path you wanted the Snake to take, and it would quickly slither along the path, dealing damage to anything it came into contact with. This would obviously have a maximum range, which in the concept is 30 tiles, but I think something like this could be really useful to target troops in specific orientations. Supercell would just need to be very careful with balancing this card to make sure it wasn't too cheap, since it could provide a ton of value in many different scenarios. Number 13. Another card concept that people brought over from Clash of Clans was this concept from 2022 for a giant cannon card. The giant cannon would work similarly to how it does in Clash of Clans, where it would have a shorter range from a normal cannon, but every cannonball would pierce infinitely and keep flying in a straight line until it went off screen. The cannonball would also do a small amount of knockback in addition to the base damage of the card. While I would love to see this card added to the game, I feel like Supercell might just use this concept for the cannon evolution when that comes out, since I think it would make more sense than doing a completely separate card. Number 14. The Electro Curse is a card concept from 2021 that is essentially a hybrid between a lightning and a zap, but with a twist. The Electro Curse would target the two troops with the highest HP in its radius and apply a curse to them. This curse would cause a cursed zap to land on the cursed troop every 3.5 seconds, dealing half the damage of a normal zap and stunning all nearby troops for a short time. If you're familiar with the evolved Ice Spirit, it would work similarly to that, where the affected troop would have an icon above their character for the duration of the curse. From what I can see in the card concept, the curse would last until the troop died, which definitely seems a little bit overpowered, especially for 3 elixir, so if this were to be added to the game, there would definitely be a cap on how long this curse could last. Something like this would definitely be cool to see in the game though, and I think it would open up a ton of possibilities for new strategies and decks in the game. Number 15. If there's one thing players love, it's making card concepts to try and get Clash of Clans troops and buildings adapted to Clash Royale. The next concept is based on the Electrofire Wizard from the Builder Base update in Clash of Clans. The Electrofire Wizard can be switched between 2 modes, Electro mode and Inferno mode. Inferno mode works just like an Inferno Dragon, where a beam of fire from the wizard does increasing damage the longer it stays on one target, while the Electro mode is like an Electro Dragon, where the attack stuns and chains between targets. If Supercell did decide to add this to Clash Royale, it would likely have to be a champion, since it has an active ability that needs to be activated. Other than that though, this card would be really cool, since you'd be essentially having 2 different cards in one slot of your deck. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to help us reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers by the end of 2024.